welcome back to another episode of the knee-slapping K-pop podcast. I am Kayla, and today I am here with Sammi.
Hi.
And today we are here to talk about two different but related things. The first thing is that, so this episode started off as us talking about South Korea's Broadway, and just like what's going on there and the types of Broadway musicals that they decide they want to make in South Korea and that type of stuff. Because a lot of idols do Broadway musical acting, so we thought it would be a fun thing to go over.
A lot of it just started with us talking about how Korea will adapt musicals, and this is a really common thing that I think a lot of people don't realize happens, which is that purely American musicals are adapted and translated into other languages and shipped overseas.
Yes.
And they're
We
questionable.
just happen to hear it about South Korea because a lot of K-pop idols are in them. So we hear about it a lot because if you're in like the K-pop news realm, you probably see articles about that a lot too.
Yes. And the thing with it also is that we're not talking about Korean musicals, which is another thing.
Korean-specific musicals, no.
Korean-specific musicals, I do not know anything about.
Adapted musicals in Korean. Yes.
That's where we were going to talk about it.
Yes.
And so we've had this on the schedule.
This has been moved
months.
So many months back at this point. Like
originally,
this
I think
was
it was
in,
what,
February
April
or March or something. It was like very early in the year originally.
We had it, and this has sort of been the episode that was never timely enough that thank God we moved it back.
I know.
Honestly,
so I think we moved it back because spoilers. We're going to talk about Altar Boyz the musical for most of this section. When we were able to watch that musical, we were like, well, let's move it back until that comes out and we can find a way to watch it, and then we can have like an actual thing that we have watched to talk about. So that was the first time we moved it back, and then it just kept getting pushed back farther and farther.
It kept getting pushed back because we had other things we wanted to do first.
Yes.
And then, about 2 months ago?
3 months ago, yeah.
We got the news of actual Kpop the Musical starting its previews on Broadway.
Yes.
And we're like, so this is a thing now.
Yes, and so now we will also be talking about Kpop the Musical, because how can we not, honestly, at this point, so...
I would like to preface this, if anybody's looking for a review of Kpop
the
Musical,
not seen it.
Neither of us have seen it.
We have not seen it.
I could go see it. I will get to why I'm not gonna go see it.
I live too far away to go see it, and I'm not willing to spend a shit ton of money to go travel to see it, so...
It would probably take me half an hour to get to where it is in the middle of fucking Manhattan. Mm-hmm. Will I go see it? Absolutely not. We will get to why. We will get to my many reasons. So many reasons.
That's the second half of this episode is Kpop the Musical, Broadway musical.
Yes.
American Broadway musical.
Yes.
Let's get right into it. I guess we'll start with Altar Boyz. So... Altar Boyz is wild.
Altar Boyz is wild. I want to preface this by saying, many a time we look at Korean adaptations of musicals, and for the most part, a lot of musicals work, and a lot of musicals don't work. And the ones that work are the ones that are a very universal, simple story, and they are able to just sort of adapt it, and culturally, or there might be some cultural differences.
Ones where it really doesn't matter where the country the musical takes place in are the ones that do the best,
Or specifically for the cast, because I do think Altar Boyz in part's problem is its cast. So Altar Boyz, the original musical, is, to just quote what they call it, it is essentially a comedy parody musical. It's a satire.
Straight out from the Wikipedia page of Altar Boyz, it is centering on a fictitious Christian boy band from Ohio. The show satires, among other things, the phenomenon of boy bands and the popularity of Christian-themed music in contemporary American culture.
I want to point out that this musical was also written in 2005.
Yeah, so that is in the lens of 2005 contemporary American culture.
Yes. But also, it ran off Broadway for 5 years.
Yeah.
This musical is apparently extremely...
It's the ninth longest running off-Broadway musical of all time.
Congratulations for it. And, we've seen we've tried to consume as much of it as we could of like the actual original performance of that show, and we will go through. We're gonna go through the characters. We're gonna go through all of it. But the entire issue is that this is a satire of Christianity and boy bands. And
American
for some
boy bands
reason,
specifically.
American boy bands, but also boy bands generally. I think that if they had kept it, they could have changed it everything to be appropriate. And they're trying to adapt it and to another extent, it's also a satire on like sexuality, which is another problem. And they decided that the cast of this, because the cast of this musical is 5 people. It is a concert musical.
Mm-hmm. It's
the
like
cast
6
is 5
musical.
people.
It is a concert
yes.
it is like staged as a concert, but it's a musical.
Yes. The cast is 5 people. You only ever meet 5 people. There is no one else. And in Korea, every single one of them is a currently active K-pop idol. Yep. And not like an older one, not like your second gen idols. It is a currently active young. Is Baekho young anymore? I don't know, but youngish K-pop idol.
Yeah.
So can they? And also, it is at least the adaptation we saw, because there have been many Korean adaptations of this. For some reason, it keeps coming back.
South Korea really found this musical, and also Japan for some reason. It's both in South Korea and Japan, and like really resonated with it for some really bizarre reason.
The other thing with it is that Japan and Korea, anything we say about how Korea adapts musicals also has to do with Japan, because the same musicals that get adapted one way get adapted to the other country. When we looked it up,
one of the like second gen idol like runs of this musical was a weird joint South Korea Japan like type thing. Yeah.
But the thing with it is, there are 5 characters. The characters are, and if you begin to get the gist of what this musical's about. Matthew, Mark, Luke, Juan, and Abraham.
Yep.
We'll get to them. But in terms of the adaptation we saw, which I don't know if I've mentioned my last point, was directed by Super Junior Eunhyuk, if that tells you anything about some people possibly missing the jokes.
Because
this is a comedy musical.
The whole problem with the South Korean adaptation of this is that this is purely a comedy satire musical, and
it's hilarious.
Absolutely none of that is in the South Korean adaptation. Like, the fact that it is a comedy is completely lost in translation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's because a lot of the jokes in Altar Boyz are not specifically written into the script. They're in the actual performance of the actors. A lot of it is it's like suggested comedy, or it's things that like it's like subtle stuff that you pick up. It's based on phrasing,
A lot of it is phrasing, a lot of it is acting, a lot of it is the choices of just what the characters are wearing.
Yeah.
You can get a lot from those characters,
and it's like the way lines are delivered
straight.
in like certain like sarcastic ways. It's like a lot of that is based off of
a lot of
the comedy comes from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of it is based on how they how they act. Mm-hmm. Essentially, it's not because the songs themselves are all it's a concert. So the songs themselves are all almost like they're pure pop songs. They're never saying anything out loud. They're essentially, so the framework of this is that the group, the Altar Boyz, are here and they're performing a concert. And they learn about, and then each of them has a speech about themselves and their life the way that you would at a concert. You have an introduction, they talk about themselves. And the story beats that come out are in those dialogue bits, and then the song is just like a funny thing that happens afterward.
Yeah, like a lot of the storytelling doesn't happen in the actual songs.
No. But the songs are very funny.
Mm-hmm.
The songs are very funny when you have the context for them. And the acting is so fun. The problem is when you play it straight. And I do only think that there is only one song it worked with.
There's only one song it works with, and that's only because it's so ridiculous that even when you're playing it straight, it's just, like, hilarious, but not because it's purposely being made that way. It's because it's done so poorly that makes it funny from, like, a viewer's perspective.
Yeah. So otherwise, we'll start getting into the cast. So I'm going to just read the character's Wikipedia synopsis, and you're going to get a very quick gist of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
I read it again, and it's hilarious.
Yep.
So we're going to start with Matthew, who's the leader of the band, and strongly believes in sexual abstinence.
Because of
course
brand.
He was.
Yep.
And he was played by Becco of Newest. At the time of Newest.
Yes.
This was before Newest broke up.
It was.
Mark, the sensitive choreographer of the band, who has a crush on Matthew but is closeted.
Yep.
And he was played by Ju Chan. That storyline is cut.
That storyline does not exist in the Korean adaptation of the musical.
And that is Mark's only storyline, because Mark's entire bit of his dialogue is talking about how he was, bullied for being different.
Yes.
And you understand. He doesn't have to spell it out.
You understand in the American version that it is because he is gay. But yes. That is completely not present in the Korean version.
And then fully, he just talks about his admiration for Matthew.
Yes. And that's his best friend, and sometimes his best friend maybe doesn't care about him as much as he cares about him, but it's that's about all we get out of that.
And you understand that when he says it's his best friend who he would do anything for, it's because he's in love with him.
Yes.
And then you have Luke, the bad boy of the band that drives the tour bus, and who has problems with communion wine and dropped out of school. He's drunk. He's a drunk.
He's an alcoholic,
he's an alcoholic.
In the American version, I think actually goes to rehab.
Yes, it's implied he went to rehab.
He goes to rehab, but that is also not really present in the Korean version.
And why is it not present? Because he's played by Y from Golden Child. That's entire, he's played off a bit that he likes to party, but the actual implication of alcoholism is, and by I want to say implication because they never, but in the American one, it's it is out there.
It's so obvious because he acts drunk the entire show.
Yes,
it's and then it's why is not doing that nearly well enough that you can tell.
And then we have Juan, the Latin lover of the band that picks out the clothes and is searching for his parents.
Yep. That's what that is.
We just keep saying it.
And in the American version, that character is clearly written to be a racist stereotype, and that's kind of part of the joke.
Yeah, because also part of the joke is it's playing off of the stereotype that a lot of these boy bands have. One, stereotypes that people fall into and just play into, and two, it's also playing into tokenism.
Yeah.
Because he is the token minority.
But it's because the entire thing is a satire, why that character is written the way that it is when it's in South Korea, and now it's just the character's kind of problematic and racist.
And played by Taeyang of SF9.
Yep.
Totally chill. And is that character entirely played great even in the American one? I mean, it was 2005.
Yeah.
Possibly not. It's possibly more questionable long term.
It is definitely a questionable character that exists, but the fact that it's written in the context of a satire is different. Yeah.
Different. There's more plausible deniability.
Yeah.
And then we have Abraham. The Gefelt. I'm just reading the Wikipedia article. The gefilte fish out of water, who is also the songwriter. He is Jewish and not exactly sure why he is in a Catholic band. Yep. I'm just reading the Wikipedia article.
That character is still very identifiably Jewish because they will just say he's Jewish. That's constantly continued to be brought up.
He's also played by Sanha of Astro, which again, I do not know how familiar a lot of Koreans are with people who are Jewish.
Yeah.
I don't know what the Jewish population is in Korea. I don't know how familiar they would be anyway. But that character mainly his storyline stays intact, which is just that he is a fish out of water. He's
Jewish and he doesn't know why he's here. Yeah.
Yeah. But also he really likes his group, but also he really is just also a lot of the biblical references they do questionable.
Yeah.
He doesn't get them a lot, but that's fine.
Mm-hmm. It's really truly something, the musical, because I do think that all of the songs were definitely like K-popified. Like they sound like they are just K-pop songs, a lot of them. So they did rearrange them slightly for that, because they're playing off the Altar Boyz as this is a K-pop group, sort of, and it feels very much like they are trying to make them feel like a K-pop group.
Yeah, I agree with that, and also I also just think that we'll get to also this in Kpop the Musical. The way that musical theater singing and pop singing are different. You sing things very differently.
Mm-hmm.
So I also just think that the people, one, they would have had to update it from 2005 anyway, because pop music sounds different now anyway. And also just the fact of having pure, like, pop vocalists do it will make the music sound a little bit different. It does make it lean more toward K-pop as opposed to musical
whatever
theater.
Was going on,
yeah,
in the American version.
Because the American version does sound, they did make songs that just sound like current at the time 2005 pop music.
Yeah, because it still does just have like a generic pop music sound to it, the songs to begin with. So
yeah,
it's not as hard to adapt that just into K-pop than it would be like just an actual Broadway musical, but still.
So how do we want to go through this?
I mean, what even is the plot of this musical, to be honest? It's like not very complex, apart from like the Taeyang situation.
So, the plot of the musical is apparently they are just
they're a Catholic boy band. They go around, they give concerts because they want to save souls.
They want to save souls, and they're trying to save souls as they go through, and there's like a soul meter. It's just weird.
It's a weird,
And they go through each of their struggles to try and save everybody's soul.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, I believe that it's like revealed that the band is all got solo deals.
Yeah, and then they're gonna break
all
up.
offered solo deals, and they were all gonna break up until it's revealed that Abraham, the Jewish one, really just wants to be in a band and was like, no, I didn't want to leave. I said no to the solo deal. And then, oh, great, everyone's happy again. We're all together again.
Yes.
That's the
gist in the musical.
Yeah. That's a thing with this musical, is that it is so comedy-based that if you want to just spell out the plot, plot is in service of jokes.
Isn't very interesting.
And that's the thing with comedy musicals, is that once you take out the comedy,
like, what
you're
kind of
screwed.
With? Yeah.
Once you take out the comedy of... So, Mark's whole story, he sings a song where he talks about how, apparently he had
Episcopalian
bullies who made fun of him for his voice and the way he dressed, and then Matthew defended him, and then he calls him his guardian. He calls Matthew his guardian angel. And if you play it the way that is meant to be played, he is singing a love song. It's a pure love ballad to him, and he's talking about how he was bullied for being different by these Episcopalian bullies, which is funny.
And the chorus of this song, it's like the entire story leading up to it is if you like don't know the plot of it, you think that this is him, like, his coming out song, and as if like he's getting to the chorus
like
and he's gonna realize that he's gay, except for the punchline is he just says, I'm a Catholic, instead.
Yeah. That's the punchline.
Yeah.
And it's funny.
And it's funny because it's performed in such a way that, like, the actor knows what's going on, and it's, like, he knows where the punchline is and, like, what has to happen, and it's very funny. But, like, Ji-chan is out here just, like, singing a ballad, because the entire comedic element of that is just not present, so instead of there being this, like, really funny build-up moment in the chorus, it's just Ji-chan singing a ballad. That is about being Catholic, and, like, that's it.
That's and like the way it is usually performed, it is a love song to Matthew. Like, it is performed like that. It is performed many times. They perform it to him, as opposed to Ju-chan, who performs it to the audience, doesn't look at Baekho at any point because he is not gay, and they do not want to insinuate that he is.
Yes, and that's just like one big thing that is just completely not present in the Korean adaptation.
I think the other character, I think that's the character with the biggest disservice is Mark. I think the second character, we can almost go through this by character from
Matthew's
like, worst
the same.
treated.
Matthew's just identical, here to be boring.
Yeah, Matthew is there for the boredom. Matthew is like the steadfast one. Matthew is super boring.
Yeah.
So almost he doesn't change. He just talks about how, like, don't have sex.
Yeah.
Sexual abstinence, everybody.
And like, he's the leader of the group too, and it's just like he is here to be a character for other he's more sort of like he's almost a supporting character for all of the other characters to tell like their more interesting stories about themselves.
And I think that also works because there's 5 characters, so dear God, you kind of, one of them's got to fall by the wayside. The other character I think was extremely done a disservice with is probably Luke. Luke's character, he is such a like party, like, you get the implication that when he went to rehab, 2, he's also extremely self-centered.
Yes,
because his whole song is called Body, Mind, and Soul. He thinks of himself as he's the bad boy. He's the star. He's like, I don't need any of these people, and that's the joke. Why doesn't play it that way? Why plays it? I don't even fully understand what direction they gave him, because Ju-chan's story, Mark's story, you can sort of see if you play it straight, it's just about bullying, and like, you don't have, like, there's still, like, it's a boring story, but like it kind of makes sense.
He's just doing it, yeah.
He's just doing it. Luke's story, if you take out the comedy, if you take out all of like the self-centeredness and things that would make an idol look bad, you're left with nothing.
And
the character becomes nothing.
It almost feels like he was given conflicting direction on it too, because I think they keep all of his lines in there the same about the like weird lines that hint at the fact that he's an alcoholic and then he has been to rehab, but like none of them actually hit with the audience, because I don't think he knows how to deliver them, or if he's supposed to deliver them in a way that is a joke or not. So it's kind of like awkward feeling whenever those lines come up.
Fully put the blame on why, because I also think that a lot of it might be rehearsal, the direction he was given.
Like, it's so confusing to try to understand what type of direction all of them were given from Eunhyuk, because I don't know if Eunhyuk also knows what's going on in this musical either. So
I mean, Eunhyuk was in this musical though.
He was
in an earlier production,
but like, I don't think they understood it back then either. So
fair. I also agree with that. I'd say Abraham doesn't really change. His main thing is that, like, the voice of God is the one that tells them to, like, make a boy band. Apparently. This is them all recalling the story, and he's like, I don't necessarily agree with this, but I'm here now.
I just want friends, and it's the fact that he doesn't
understand the Catholic references because he's not Catholic, he's Jewish. So I think that character doesn't really change. Juan is the character I think both changes the most and doesn't.
Yes. Because they like can't change him because
they cannot change the actual text.
They can't.
The text is 100% there. They just played it fully straight.
Yeah.
And the thing with Juan's storyline is that even if you played fully straight, it's so
ridiculous.
It's almost played straight in the musical because that's how ridiculous it is.
Yeah.
It's played because so the Juan storyline is that he was abandoned in a church in Tijuana, Mexico, and then found his way to Ohio
somehow,
and is now looking for his parents in Ohio somehow.
And then ended up in Ohio. Yep.
I don't know. But apparently, then he gets a letter in the show that says they found his parents.
I think the other members go get that, like, looking for it for him or something. And it's like gonna be a gift, or it's like, oh, it's his birthday. Here's information on your parents. Yeah.
They found his parents, and then they tell him the address where his parents are, and it's a cemetery because they're dead.
Yeah.
And then Juan still has to sing about La Vida Eternal, which is his song, which is about eternal life, which is how he's trying to save the souls about eternal life, and it's about his parents just died, and that is funny, but it's also kind of played straight in the musical because that's the point, that's the joke, and it's the one that works the best because I still think that
and like during that song is just like Tae Yang consistently running off stage because he's gonna have a mental breakdown.
And then Becco following him,
and having to come bring him back on stage.
And yeah, but like if you watch it done in America, it's so much funnier because it is like it becomes like a comedy. It's a comedy routine because like Juan will leave and Matthew will follow, and then at some point Mark follows, and then you just have like
Luke and Abraham there.
Luke and Abraham
tango dancing with each
Tango
other.
dancing together. At one point they make Abraham sing the song because he apparently writes all their songs so he knows it. And then you just have like Luke and Mark tangoing a little bit,
and then like Juan will come back for like a hot second and then leave again,
and then run off again, and then no one knows what to do, and it's hilarious, and it's just so funny.
It's
when
really
it's done.
funny, and it's
like the way that they do it in the Korean one isn't bad.
It's not bad because I feel like it's really hard to make that scene bad too, just like given the nature of it.
Yeah, but like honestly, could be so much funnier.
It could be. It's so fun. It's so funny in the American version. But I think it's also because they got rid of the Mark storyline too. That it's like they got rid of a lot of the fun parts of that song and like the comedy happening there.
Yeah. I just think that it's a very misunderstood musical that, like, unless you are willing to get people willing to criticize the industry that they're in, because, like, there's a way to do this with K-pop, and, like, I still think the critiques done in that show of both religion and boy bands work for K-pop, and they still work today, even in 2005. I think maybe Juan would need to be changed a little bit for a current adaptation of this musical, but still, I think that it would work.
Because they've done so many productions of this before, like, some of the characters I think can be played better by different people, because, like, in Altar Boyz 2018, Dongwoo plays Luke, Dongwoo of Infinite, and Dongwoo just the way that Dongwoo is as, like, a person feels like he kind of feels like he's drunk a lot, just like by being himself.
It's way more subtle than it's supposed to be, like than it would be in an American production. It's very subtle, but there is an understanding of the character a little bit more.
But Dongwoo is just like such like a wild person that him just like given the direction of like you're a party guy, have fun, is like he's doing like a lot more with that.
He's gonna be drunk.
He definitely plays that character better. Also, in the 2018 Altar Boyz, they had a split cast too, but if anyone's curious, Ye-sung of Super Junior and Chansung of 2PM play Matthew, and then Dongwoo of Infinite and Se-young of My Name play Luke, Neil of Teen Top plays Mark, and then Dongwoon of Beast and Tapia of Cross Gene play Abraham.
Okay, why do I feel like Neil of Teen Top maybe understood the role of Mark better?
I think Neil probably understood that role better, but was also probably given really poor direction on what to do.
Fair, but I also feel like, no offense to Ju-chan, but I feel like he is probably able to I feel like this entire cast is, I don't know, maybe it's because with how much time has passed and we know them now that they don't care.
Yeah.
Because they're old and they don't care anymore, and they're able to sort of do whatever they want.
Also, I want to point out that the actor who played Juan in that version was just a Japanese Broadway actor.
You know, why not? La Vida Eternal. That's the best song in that show.
It is. It's
La Vida Eternal is the best song in that. If you've never heard of this, honestly, go just look up The Vida Eternal. It's so good. But yeah, that's
Altar Boyz.
That's Altar Boyz.
South Korean Altar Boyz, which was a choice.
I think that there are musicals. Again, I think that inherently, I think the entire subject matter is the problem.
Yeah. It blows my mind that this is one of the musicals that South Korea found and like really, really decided they liked.
2 productions.
Because it's so American. It is so specifically based on like American culture that I don't understand why that was something when they translated it over into Korean was such a huge hit. Because it doesn't seem like it shouldn't work really.
It shouldn't. Because the other thing is like I am not aware fully on how many changes they are allowed to make in terms of the adaptation process. It feels like they just do straight adaptations.
Mm-hmm.
And that it is just sort of, you just get what it is. You're not allowed to adapt it culturally. Maybe some phrasing things and everything else to make it work a little bit more. But I don't know how much you're allowed to change. Or if you just have to straight translate. It feels like they tend to try to just straight translate, which I get, to try to give people the same experience no matter what language it is, but still, it feels like if you're gonna, at that point, I might as well just watch it with subtitles.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's
because
because with like other musicals that they have done this with that are like maybe that also feel very specifically American, but I feel like worked a little bit better. Like In the Heights, like they'd made a
In the Heights. They did do a production of In the Heights,
and that is also a very specifically like American musical as well. It also, but the way that they translated that. It's like the entire plot of the musical and everything, like, stayed the same. Like, none of that got lost in translation. Yeah. And the way that they translated it was, like, such a interesting mix of both, like, of all three, of English, Spanish, and Korean, that I think the translation for that was actually done pretty good. It was an interesting choice to make a South Korean adaptation of, but I don't think it was done horribly.
I think the main issue with Altar Boyz, and I think that might be the main genre that it would be an issue with, is comedy.
Yeah.
I think, especially if you're going to play a comedy straight, is the problem. And also, comedy is very difficult to translate.
Especially, I think with Altar Boyz specifically, with so much of the comedy being in performance and, like, and subtle hints and, like, phrasing and everything, that is really something that's gonna get lost when you translate it into another language. Yeah.
But honestly, I think for the most part, the adaptations, they do adapt the correct stuff. Like, there have been Korean adaptations of, recently was a Korean adaptation of Hadestown. That works. That's fine. That's a Greek myth. Who cares? Mamma Mia, The Phantom of the Opera. They keep doing Dracula the Musical, which, you know what? Thrive. Junsu keeps playing Dracula in Korean musicals, and you know what? Thrive. They keep doing Death Note the Musical, which I've seen. I've seen, like, the Japanese version, and honestly, I think that musical should come to Broadway, much less Korea.
Honestly.
I think there should be more productions of Death Note the Musical. Bring back that U.S. recording of that Death Note musical. Please. Honestly, make it.
I would see it.
I'd go see it, absolutely.
Let's
be better than Kpop the Musical. But what else? Other ones?
Hairspray. That's a bad one.
Hairspray, not a good idea.
Maybe not a good idea.
Hairspray, I do know for a fact, has been adapted in Japan. I don't know if it ever premiered. It was, like, right before COVID, so I don't know if it ever, like, actually happened. But I did see something about it going to Japan.
And that also involves, like, really questionable, like, blackface that has to happen in productions of that. And I'm just like, okay. We're in, like, weird territory here.
Again, I think that anything that that is inherently about race, and that you would need to do blackface for, because I don't
Maybe don't do it.
Because I think the thing with In the Heights is In the Heights works without them having to do brownface at all.
Yeah. They
can just be playing, you know, characters that are a different race than them because it's a musical, and it's like, should they be doing it at all? More questionable, but they do not have to do anything like that.
Yeah.
I think that Hairspray is so much about,
like, segregation
race
being like the main plot point of Hairspray. It's like, oh.
Yeah. Any musical like that, I think, is questionable. Rent, I think, depends on... I think Rent has been adapted in Korea, and I think it was adapted entirely by musical actors.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it works because they're allowed to just keep Rent as it is. I think if Rent ever had an idol in it, I think then they would have to start changing Rent, and I think that's a problem.
So the thing that is... Oh, that I just realized that is even more confusing to me about Altar Boyz the Musical is that it's not like... other Broadway musicals have, like, made characters, like, not gay or anything like that before, because I know for a fact Yeonjung of WJSN was just in Lizzie, and she plays a lesbian character in that, and has, like, a full-on makeout scene with a woman, in that she's an idol, and, like, that's in the original, like, storyline, and that was, like, a fine thing to do, and so it is extra confusing, knowing that that was completely... taken out of Altar Boyz the Musical now, yeah.
Is it maybe because it is talking about, like, it's talking about relationships in the idol industry with idols, with other idol members?
It's maybe is
like
that. I think,
whole thing?
Because I think the reason why Altar Boyz probably is such a big thing is because they do turn it into, like, it's a fun K-pop thing. They cast idols in it every time. And I think it's mostly run productions of for, like, K-pop fans to go see, like, their favorite idols in a musical in. And also, I also think it probably has the extra problem of the entire plot of the musical just being lost in translation to begin with, that maybe that's just a thing they didn't even realize when they were making the translation of it. Anyway.
Fair enough. Because they would... Yeah, fair enough. I do just think that it's a weird choice for that to be the musical you kind of stick with, because there's other musicals they could be doing. But they've chosen to stick with this one over and over again.
You know what would be fun, because it is, like, thinking back to, like, concert musicals, if they did Six the Musical, but then
Six would be fun.
Casted, like, 6 different girl group members in that, like, that could be a fun thing for them to do and replace this and be probably a lot better.
Yeah, because you don't that can just be played the way it is.
Right. Like, there's nothing, and it's like, all of that can get transferred over and retranslated, like, fine, and I feel like that would be more fun now. Maybe we gotta get rid of Altar Boyz and replace it with Six.
Because I do think, because they have adapted comedy musicals in Korea, because Beetlejuice was adapted.
Right,
Beetlejuice is hilarious. That's part of what's fun about Beetlejuice, that you have to have, it has to be funny. So it's not that they can't adapt comedy. I just think it's that particular
There's something about Altar Boyz specifically that something went very wrong with whatever they were adapting with it.
I mean, if I'm going to blame anybody, I want to blame Eunhyuk.
Yeah, and then I think it's also the fact that whenever... Because they have been making Altar Boyz in South Korea for, like, 10 years now, almost, or more.
I know, it's ridiculous.
And so I feel like whenever they translated it over then, and whatever mistakes they made at that time, they just are continuing to make in, like, recent productions of it. So I feel like maybe that's also a thing where it's like, maybe they did want to not transfer that over back in, like, 2000 and whatever, 2012 or whatever they would have done it. Yeah. And then that is just the way they did it then, so it's the way they do it now, because no one has bothered to go back and look at the source material again.
Fair enough. I would love to see, like, a reimagining, readaptation.
Yeah.
Like, start from scratch and just see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is not a shitting on Korean adaptations of musicals, because a lot of
them
this
is just
really
Altar Boyz specifically, like, something went wrong here.
Yeah. I would love to see the Korean adaptation of Beetlejuice. I think that'd be hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
It looks really good, too. It looks like actually, like, high budget and everything.
Right.
And they sound really good. And so many of these songs, you wouldn't think that they would work as well just translated over into Korean. But they do.
They do.
I think they work extremely well.
A lot of them work really well, yeah.
And they sound really good. So yay.
Shall we move on to K-Pop the Musical?
Yep.
So K-Pop the Musical has almost, like, the opposite problem of Altar Boyz, where the Altar Boyz is where you have all these K-pop idols who are now expected to sing in a Broadway musical. Now you have a bunch of Broadway musical actors who are trying to dance and sing like a K-pop group. And it's just
also
not
trying to. It's almost the exact opposite problem of Story, where you have something extremely American having to be done by Koreans, and now you just have
something extremely
a music
Korean
genre that is very Korean,
having
to be translated over into an American. Because the thing with Broadway, and this is something I don't know if, especially people that aren't fans of Broadway or K-pop fans know, is that Broadway, to run a Broadway show is extreme. Broadway on Broadway, because it's on Broadway. It is an actual Broadway show, is expensive. To get a Broadway show made is expensive. Many Broadway shows will never make their money back. They can run for years and they might not make their money back because it is so expensive to get one off the ground, especially if it's a new show. So this musical has to have, even if it's a low budget, which it doesn't look like it's
look
a
high
concert
budget.
musical.
Yeah.
It doesn't look high budget, especially because it looks like it's a concert musical, like similar to Six and similar to Altar Boyz.
The way that it's been described is it is like run as like a quote unquote mockumentary of this fake K-pop company, and they're wanting to break into the Western market. So the audience is there as quote unquote like the test audience for their groups and like to sort of
that's how that works,
like a focus group of sorts. In the off-Broadway version, before it got to Broadway, the musical was literally performed in multiple different rooms, and the audience would move between rooms to view, like, different little scenes.
Which you can't do in a Broadway
theater.
No,
so
Broadway
now it is just... So now it is run as a mockumentary, like, focus group type of a thing, in the actual Broadway show.
I think that almost would work better, to have people move around, I don't even know. I don't think
it's such a weird thing to think about. Like, I go to see this thing and I hear someone move rooms through different scenes.
And it's like, now please go through the door to the next room. Also, how big is it?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I mean, the thing with
because one of those rooms is meant to just be like a dressing room or something, or like or you're in like a dance practice room in one of them, and it's very bizarre. But that's not how it's running on Broadway, but that is how it started off.
And the thing with Broadway is that the only distinction between a Broadway theater and a regular off-Broadway theater is the amount of seats. Yeah. So this musical has, for something to be a Broadway musical, it has to be in a theater that has 500 or more seats. It would be impossible to move if it sells out 500 people.
Yeah. No way.
You get one, and also Broadway theaters are tiny. They fit those. They're in the middle of New York. There's also only 41 Broadway theaters, which is insane.
Oh wow!
Like one of the there's 41 because they have to have more than 500 seats, so they have to be apparently massive. But there is one. They're there. You're going in. You're sitting down, and you're shutting up.
You're there for the whole time.
You're there for 3 hours.
I know I've read a lot of articles on it. I know the reason they ended up in the theater they did is because the stage is like kind of circular, and that's fun for
they're
like,
kind of
whatever.
From the seating chart I saw, because I was looking at how much tickets were, because they're still in previews. This hasn't actually technically premiered yet. The way it works, it's almost like a horseshoe of people. So the stage is like circular with like a backstage area, like the back of the stage. And people are sort of around on 3 sides, as opposed to just stage and then rows of people in front.
Right.
Which makes me think that like it does work for this concert style musical.
Right. It seems like it makes sense. So based off of, again, neither of us have seen this musical, nor do we plan to see this musical. Most people haven't yet. So all of our discussion,
at the time of this recording, most people
haven't. So all of our discussion on this is purely based around like many news articles that have been written about it at this point.
Many news articles, and they have been performing this shit. Oh, you want to know what I want to know? This will have already happened. Are they gonna be at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade doing one of the Broadway previews? Are they gonna be there? Maybe.
I feel like because they've been on Good Morning America and everything, they probably should be, yeah.
If not, that is a missed marketing opportunity. They absolutely should be.
Parade, yeah.
Because for people that don't know, the Macy's
Six was there last year, so.
Six was there, and also any Broadway show that is trying to get people to go, and this,
I feel like it needs to get people
Broadway
to go.
shows need to do this.
Yeah.
So at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, they will just have the new Broadway shows do a performance. They better, or else that's a missed opportunity, and that is a bad decision.
Mm-hmm.
Because you want people to go. And also, this musical it doesn't have the usual, because I enjoy musical theater. I follow a bunch of accounts that talk about musical theater and that talk about Broadway and that talk about other things.
Yes.
That side of this is not talking about K-pop the musical.
No, because this is literally for the K-pop fans. This
Exactly.
musical is going to be a lot of people's first ever Broadway musical because they don't give a shit about regular Broadway musicals and only care because this is a K-pop musical and it has multiple ex-K-pop stars
K-pop
in
idols.
it. Yeah.
Yes. Because the thing with it is that, especially now, especially post-pandemic, there are a lot of Broadway shows premiering that didn't premiere with the pandemic. Everything's still trying to, like, reorganize.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, to me, as, like, looking at the demographic of Broadway, I worry for this musical financially.
Yes.
Because what you need for a K-pop musical, for a musical to be successful, like, there are Broadway musicals that fucking won the Broadway musical that just won the Tony for Best Musical is closing.
Yeah.
Because it is a very niche story that does not get, that, again, has its audience, but Broadway shows cost at least $100. It's $100 to go see it.
So you need people willing to pay $100
to pay.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that the Broadway shows that stay open for years and years and years are, one, fun ones that people want to come back to, and also ones that tourists want to come see. That's why Phantom ran for 30 years. It's something that a tourist can go see.
When I went on vacation to, like, New York City, it's like, yeah, we saw The Lion King because that was fun. Like, and that's, like, we made almost a last-minute decision to do that because, like, yeah, Lion King's a fun thing that it's like you just make a decision to go see. No regular American family is gonna be in New York City.
Come from the Midwest
and see,
to the York.
And see a listing for K-pop the musical and decide last minute, yeah, let's go see K-pop the musical.
The other thing is that you also think international tourists, you need a basic story. That's why, like, I keep referencing Phantom. Phantom is a very basic story.
Mm-hmm.
Even something like Hadestown. Hadestown, very good. Hadestown, extremely, extremely good. Hadestown is a story that's been told a million times in different ways.
Hadestown is based off of a Greek myth.
It's based off a Greek myth.
It has existed for years, yeah.
And is it elevated? Is it different? Is it amazing? Yes. I'm saying nothing bad about Hadestown. Hadestown is wonderful.
But it is a classic story.
But it's a classic story. Yes. There is not a high bar of entry. You can go in and just accept what it is.
And
Even Beetlejuice.
I think the biggest problem with K-pop the musical, from what I've read about it is so specifically a Korean American experience. It is super niche. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, there's nothing wrong about a musical that's written by Korean Americans, like, for other, not even just Korean Americans, but other Asian Americans and, you know, maybe people of, like, mixed race background who can relate to a lot of the storylines in there. But it is so specifically catered to that. And it's also, I mean, obviously to the, like, a lot of K-pop fans who want to go see it because it's a K-pop musical, but it is so specific that I don't know if it has a wider appeal, really.
I think that very niche stories can do well on Broadway. I just think that you need to... This musical does not seem to have buzz. Is weird.
They're trying to create it, but it is just not getting it.
Because the thing is, it's creating buzz amongst K-pop fans. It's almost because creating buzz because it's wild that a K-pop musical is premiering on Broadway. Like, it's like, that's a wild thing to happen right now. And the thing with it is that K-pop fans don't fully know what to think of it because I'm not fully sold on going to go see it. I could go see it, but I would wait for the reviews to come in. I would want to know if it's good or not.
I honestly don't even think I want to see it at this point.
I don't think I want to see it either, but I want to give it a chance.
Mm-hmm.
If people come out and saying it's phenomenal, maybe. But at this point, from what I have seen about it, I am not interested.
Yeah.
And I've been a K-pop fan for 10 years. Like, I like K-pop. Do I like this? I don't know.
And
I don't think I do.
That's, I think, also one of the other problems is that I don't think the musical is that much about K-pop. I think, going back to it, I think it is it's like very much trying to tell a specifically Korean American story, but using K-pop as the background for that.
Yeah.
Because it talks a lot about racism, but it's a lot of racism specifically about Korean Americans and what Korean Americans face in the K-pop industry, which is such a weirdly specific topic to cover. But that's like what also, half of this musical is about.
Yes. And it's also another bit of it that I was reading. It's also very much about the US influence, not just on K-pop, because I think there's a very good angle on American influence on K-pop, but then also you can get into a lot of geopolitics, but it's also about the geopolitical thing of America, the country, the superpowers.
Yes.
Like influence on Korea, the country.
There was a really,
the
really
Korean War,
bizarre article. Billboard wrote a really bizarre article about this musical that just would not stop talking about the Korean War and America's influence on South Korea and their entire culture. And I'm like, this is about a musical about K-pop. Like, what on earth is happening in this article right now?
Which makes me now confused on, like, how much K-pop is in this.
I was like, is this musical about the Korean-American War? I was so confused. Or not the Korean-American War, but the Korean War that America had a large part in, yeah.
And also from the perspective of a Korean American, like what's the?
It made me so confused about the musical after I read that article, and then I read the actual summary of the musical, and I'm like, yeah. And then it made me even more confused why Billboard wrote that article. So
yeah, the other thing that really confuses me about this musical is that essentially, and this might be like an Altar Boyz thing, where hopefully it's an Altar Boyz thing where a lot of the story is told through acting. Because it's going to have to be. Because the songs themselves cannot advance the story.
Because they're in Korean.
Because unless you understand Korean, the songs are going to just be fun pop songs to you.
And
unless they convey the entire message of the song in like the two
3
lines
English
in a
lines
chorus
that are there, yeah. And it's like, I think that's a thing that the marketing has to continually reinforce. The fact is that the musical is in English and Korean, but you don't have to understand Korean to watch it, because I think that's a big concern of, like, your average person is that, well, it's a K-pop the musical, is it in Korean? Like, am I going to go see a musical that I won't understand half of it? So they have to continually reinforce the fact that, no, you would understand it perfectly fine without knowing Korean.
Which now just makes me think of, like, is the story very, very, not thin, but, like, smaller, and then the story can be conveyed very simply with the small bits between songs. Because if you go see a Broadway musical, or there are just not that many songs in this musical.
That's the other thing, is I don't know how many songs are actually in it. So, okay, so I have read an article that essentially gave a pretty brief plot overview of the musical. To just go over that really fast to say what it's about. So essentially, there's a new entertainment company. The audience is a test group because they want to break into the Western market. It follows this one character. His name is Jerry. I think his name is Jerry. Yeah, I don't understand who he is. He's not an idol, but he's a biracial member of the company and is like the narrator of this like focus group. And so I haven't seen it, so I'm not like 100% sure of what is going on with him. But he's going through an identity struggle about being not Korean enough or too American or whatever to be in this entertainment company. So that's one thing that's happening there. And then there is this new boy group that's coming, and then one of the members that we focus on, I think his stage name is Epic. He is Korean American. He doesn't speak Korean very well, and he is having a lot of conflicts with the members because he didn't train that long. They don't deem him good enough or Korean enough to be in a K-pop group. And that is another sort of little storyline. And then there is another one with this solo artist, which is the character that Luna plays. And she's been, like, well established. She's been a trainee since she was 10, and she debuted as a soloist really, really young. And she is now getting pitted against this other girl from the company's new girl group, who they want to debut as a soloist. and she's kind of jealous because she was in the trainee system so long, she can't really like write her own song or play any instruments because she never learned it because all she's been her life is a trainee. But this other rookie idol who they want to debut and pit her against does know how to do that because she was able to go to school like a regular person and like graduate college and that type of stuff. So there's like a whole type of identity thing going on there too. And then, as far as I know, you also just get peeks into what training at the company is like. Like, there's a whole thing about, you know, plastic surgery and how that always happens in K-pop idols and companies. And then there's stuff about what it's like being in a, like, dance training at a company and how you're just doing the same 8 count for, like, 15 minutes in a row and stuff like that. And then at the end, it's really a lot of the characters, like, figuring out a lot of their identity issues. Again, like, 2 of the 3 storylines here are people sort of figuring out, like, Korean-American related identity issues. And then the entertainment company at the end coming to this realization that they don't really need to break into the Western market, or at least it's not as important as they think it is, and they can just continue to make K-pop because it's what they know and they're good at it. So... that's kind of the overall gist of what happens in the musical as far as I know from, like, summaries of it I've found.
Yes. Because also the plot of this musical has been really cagey.
Yes. It's very hard to find any information on it at all.
And that's another thing that kind of worries me about this musical, is that I feel like I don't know anything about it.
Right.
Because everyone's just saying K-pop is popular, K-pop is great. Look, we've made a K-pop musical. And I'm like, okay. And? Yeah. Come on, I need a little bit more. It's $100.
Right.
This ain't 15. This is not like a Netflix movie. This is not like, I need a little bit more to convince me to spend that much money. Because I think that's another issue.
It is weird how under wraps everything about this has been. And now it is even in previews and we still barely know, like, what is going on with the musical. Which is what makes me
concerned, because, like, I also think they have because everything can change in previews. Like, previews still are a point where people can, like, they can change the story, they can change some of the songs. Like, previews is, you're not seeing a finished show, they're still trying things out, and maybe, but usually you have a majority idea of what the show is going to look like, at least plot-wise.
Right.
Unless they are, like, at the point where they could still cut a lot. Because, like, there's a lot of shows that really change in previews.
Yeah.
But not usually Broadway previews. They usually change a lot in, like,
Right. Like,
I
feel like we're already too far along the line for that, yeah. And I know this musical already had to do, like, an essentially overhauling of the entire musical to go from off-Broadway onto Broadway. Number one, because of the multiple rooms thing. And also, this musical was written back in, like, 2012, back when K-pop was not as relevant as it currently is in, like, Western media. And that was when, like, Gangnam Style was happening, and, like, Big Bang and EXO were, like, the really big popular groups at that time. And here the writers are now in, like, 2022. Those things are not nearly as relevant anymore in, like, the modern scheme of K-pop. So they're like, well, we have to sort of revamp the songs and how K-pop is structured in this to fit into, like, a more modern setting, because they didn't want to take this musical that had, like, 2012 K-pop and, like, put it in the year 2022, because they were like, well, that's gonna sound really out of date and we don't want that, like, on our Broadway like debut. So there was already like big massive changes that had to happen to it.
And at least from the songs I have heard from this musical, the musical still doesn't sound like current K-pop, because you can't sound like current K-pop on Broadway. Like, that's not gonna work.
You know what the songs sound like to me? At least the one that I've heard on, like, Good Morning America, like, all the time. They sound like a produced theme song.
They do sound like
they give me that, like, similar vibe of, it's like, this is the theme song to, like, Produce 101 or something similar.
Yeah. The other issue with it is that, again, this was the issue with Altar Boyz, sort of the opposite of, like, K-pop idols singing like K-pop idols while trying to do musical theater songs. Now it's musical theater people trying to sound like K-pop idols, the diction.
There's too much diction.
So much
they have
diction.
too much diction that it sounds really weird.
I hear every syllable.
Yeah.
I hear every syllable. And I'm like, I don't know if I should hear every syllable.
Right. And it's just that's just how Broadway singing works in every other format. But and when it's a K-pop song, it's just like, sounds off.
And there's nothing wrong with singing like that. That works very well for Broadway, because I should be able to understand what you're saying. You're telling me important information in these songs.
And it's like the singing style, too. It's like the way that they're hitting high notes is different than, like, K-pop idols who are not classically trained at all. And it's just, it sounds different, because it's clearly written as a K-pop song, but the way it's being performed is different. And also the dancing is, like, these are, like, Broadway dancers who are now learning K-pop choreography, and, like, you can definitely tell because something about it's, like, a little bit weird looking.
Yeah. Also, I think it's just because I don't know what frame of reference a lot of the writers of this have for K-pop, because I also don't know if this is a period piece, because if it is, they did a great job, but everything looks dated.
Yeah. Oh man, the outfits are so bad.
Everything looks dated. It doesn't look like current. And it's also the fact that I don't know if you, like, with current K-pop stage outfits, that would even work for a Broadway musical.
I think that might be one part of the thing, is that K-pop stage outfits can be so weird that I don't know if they can also use them.
So simple.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you could make...
Especially that boy group looks atrocious. Like, I don't know what's going on with the styling of them, but they look like they're straight out of, like, the early 2000s. Yeah.
They look like they're from 2005. They look terrible.
Like, they're borderline in the 90s. Like, they look not great.
They don't look at all like what a boy group now would look like. They also don't even look cohesive enough to be a boy group.
And it's like...
They look like they got thrown in a thrift store and were like, fuck.
And, like, the girl group styling is better, but some of them still look kind of weird, too, and it's...
None of these groups, and I don't know if it's just because you kind of want all the characters to be distinguishable from each other, but none of them look like a group.
Not at all.
They look like a bunch of and, like, it's not that there's not even a... Like, they look like they're all dressed for different events, and there's not even a color palette they're following. They're following fucking rainbow color palette, and everything's too saturated for that.
It's very confusing.
I don't know. Maybe previews will tell them, hey, change up your wardrobe.
Get the boy group some better outfits, because, my god.
It's not good.
And I'm looking at what the boy group is wearing right now, and it's like, I don't even know if, like, young people were wearing this in, like, 2005.
I don't know if anybody has ever been wearing this
old people clothing.
That's why they got thrown in a thrift store after someone's grandpa died.
Oh man, I'm looking at this one outfit in particular that I'm like, that maybe was like what a K-pop idol would wear, where it's like a weird vest over a shirt. And I'm like, yeah, that's like pretty K-pop idol-like. But I'm looking at
the one that's in the bright red clown shoes.
And I'm looking at all denim as well. And then there's a guy with a strawberry sweater vest, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
And now just picture all of those are all the same group, as if that's how that works. Again, I think much like K-pop books, a lot of the issue with this is that I don't know what the audience is.
Yeah.
Because I don't think K-pop fans will find anything in this.
This is almost too musical theater for K-pop fans, and the fact that the musical theater fans don't really care about the musical either means that there's not much of an audience for it at that point.
And the other thing is that K-pop fandom is so much online.
Yeah.
This musical is just, I don't know if the marketing is bad, or maybe they're waiting for, like, the previews to start and then they'll start marketing more, but I have seen nothing for this musical.
I know.
The only reason that we know about this is because we are, like,
we're chronically online following K-pop news specifically. Like,
exactly. Like, that is like the only people that know about it, and those people don't want to go see it.
Yeah.
I have yet to meet a person. I've met one person that would want to go see it, but that's just to see how bad it is.
Yeah. I know one person who's seeing it for content purposes, and like that's
it's the same person. Yeah. We know the same one person. It's not even that there's two people.
No, it's the same person who's going to see it for content, and that's it.
And that's it. And that's where, and like, here's the thing. Once I see the content she makes on it, I think I'm good.
Yeah.
I think I'll be fine.
Because I know she's gonna make a video that like summarizes it, and like that's all I really want to know is like what is the actual plot of this musical.
Yeah. And the songs aren't, at least from the bits I've heard, the songs aren't good enough for me to want to go see.
Yeah.
Songs are barely good enough for me to watch it when it's like they have a cache recording on Spotify. So I'm not into that. And I think that once I just know, because the only thing that leaves me curious is the plot. And once I know the plot, I think I'm good.
Yeah.
I think I'm done.
That's all I really wanted. I was like, I just wanted someone to tell me what the plot of this musical is.
But that's our Korean Broadway episode.
That's been Korean Broadway, both actual American Broadway shows in Korean, and then Kpop the Musical, which happened to be very timely for this episode, like out of nowhere.
Extremely timely.
Yep.
And also, just think, in the theater that this is going, we could have Death Note the Musical.
Yes.
There's 41 Broadway theaters.
I feel like Death Note the Musical has a bigger audience than Kpop the Musical.
Death Note, I would go see the shit out of Death Note the Musical.
I don't even watch anime anymore, and I'd go see Death Note the Musical. Like, I would love that.
We're put a pin in our outro right now, because we're gonna go on a rant about Death Note the Musical. There is a concept album that Death Note the Musical is based on. That was recorded in English.
Yes.
Go watch it. Go
listen to it wherever it is.
Go do it.
Just go
find
look at it.
It's on YouTube.
Also, one of the songs went viral on TikTok like a few months back as well. So
I would watch the shit out of that.
I know.
And here's the thing: you get the anime fans in. Also, you get people anti-capitalism. You get the Beetlejuice fans. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
There's so much that.
And now that Death Note has had a really bad American movie, and now like the general public kind of are more aware of its existence.
Look, here's the thing. If you want to actually go watch, like, a good version of this, there is someone that put a Japanese performance of Death Note the Musical, but anytime they start singing, they put the equivalent English song over top.
Yes.
That is what Death Note the Musical would be.
Yes.
Go watch that. It's 2.5 hours of your time, but it's
great.
The best 2.5 hours of your time. It would need to probably, like, the songs they did change the story, I believe, a little bit when they adapted it in Japan. So, like, the song doesn't necessarily work 100%, but, like, you get the gist, and it's great. You get it. The staging's great. Do it. Broadway, don't be fucking cowards.
Death Note the Musical.
Bring back Death Note the Musical. Or Psycho the Musical. Either one. But, like, bring back something. Death Note the Musical more so.
Yes.
We're closing Beetlejuice. We need some other weird
I'd like to imagine
god.
that Beetlejuice is closing for Kpop the Musical, and that just makes me mad.
And that makes you upset?
Yeah. I was like, we're gaining Kpop the Musical, but we're losing Beetlejuice, and I feel like that's like a net loss overall.
And that's a terrible trade-off, I think. But, like, if we also gained Death Note the Musical,
but if we gained Death Note, I think we'd be back in the positive at least a little bit.
Bring it. If you want, look, you guys if you want to bring more Asian actors onto Broadway,
Death Note the Musical.
Do not give me K-pop the musical. Death Note the musical.
Death Note the musical.
We're
just gonna keep saying that until it happens.
Keep saying those. I
want to manifest it into existence.
We need to win the lottery
so we can put on a production of Death Note the Musical on Broadway.
I mean, I think we would make our money back.
I think we would.
I think we'd make our money back. I feel like it'd be.
I'd like to at least run it and then like see what happens. And even if it's a loss, you won the lottery anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, at least we tried it.
Right.
Also, produce a pro shot of it just so I can have it forever.
Yes, exactly.
Or a slime tutorial. About murder book.
Yes.
The murder book slime tutorial, guys. Yes. Right?
Exactly.
Everyone
who watches Broadway musicals knows what that means. You know what the slime. You know about all the wonderful slime tutorials. You know. And on that note, that has been Korean Broadway.
Yep.
We are available on all major podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We also have a YouTube channel where we post all of our episodes along with fun clip videos occasionally as well. And with that, we'll see you in the next episode. Bye!
Bye!